60 years ago today, the sport of college football in the South welcomed its first fully integrated college football team, Michigan State, who they played at North Carolina at Kenan Stadium. It's the first time a fully integrated college football team had ever played in the state of North Carolina. And we spend a lot of time honoring Jackie Robinson or the Texas Western, which is now UTEP, in 1966, for the first time we saw 5 black starters play in a national championship game. And interestingly enough, beat the University of Kentucky. And Adolph Rupp had a reputation, if you will, for not being a fan of integration. So 60 years ago, we don't spend a lot of time talking about the integration of the sport of college football. But the reality is that it is a big deal. And we're going to talk to Tom Shanahan here in a second, but somebody who played in that football game, Clinton Jones, who's a college football Hall of Famer, scored the first touchdown in that ever by a black player in the state of North Carolina. And he joins us on the Adam Gold Show. Tom Shanahan will join us in a second. But let me just start with you, Mr. Jones, and I appreciate your time.
You're welcome, Adam. It's my honor.
What was that whole experience like for you and your teammates to come into the South and deal with everything you had to deal with and perform?
Well, you have to remember, it was 60 years ago, and I had totally forgotten about that. I didn't realize that I scored the first touchdown. I really didn't. But I think at that time there might have been some controversy about the players from the South inviting their families to the game, which they did not. But everything went well. We lost the game. But what I remember most, Adam, is they had this amazing big fullback. I think his name was Woolard.
Yeah.
He was great. That's what I remember most about that game.
I know you and Tom, and we're gonna hook up with Tom here in a second. You and Tom were at Kenan Stadium not that long ago and kind of relived the moment. What was it like to be back? I'll
tell you, it was fantastic. And it was the beginning of a journey that we had no idea that things would develop as they did since that time, Adam. I was going to North Carolina to Durham. My wife and I already made reservations to visit our 2 daughters and their families there in Durham. And so I had an opportunity from the NFL to do a body and brain study examination. And I had done one 5 years ago, and so I had an opportunity to actually go there and have it paid for. So that's how I wound up going to UNC Chapel Hill. And I told Tom, let him know that I was going there, and he arranged everything. And since that time, amazing things has happened, including the chancellor is now being the president of Michigan State University, where I went.
Right.
And I'll be going there this evening, participating in his investiture this coming Sunday, honoring him there.
It's Clinton Jones.
I developed a real connection to UNC.
Well, I'm glad you have. Clinton Jones, a college football Hall of Famer and a guy who scored the first touchdown, fully integrated team, first time ever in the South. Tom Shanahan is now with us, has written many books, 2 of which we've already talked about on this program. Ray of Light, Jimmy Ray, Duffy Daugherty, and the Integration of College Football, which came out 4, 5, 6 years ago. About the 65-66 Spartans and the right thing to do, the pioneers of college football's integration in the 60s. A bigger picture question for you, Tom. Why does this issue resonate so much with you? Is it because we pay so much attention to the Jackie Robinsons of the world or the Don Haskins and Texas Westerns of the world, and that we haven't spent a lot of time on this particular issue?
Yeah, that's exactly it. The sports media failed to document these events as they were taking place. So it's largely an untold story. But not only is this game at North Carolina a proud moment in the college football integration history story, the 1964 season is a proud moment for the state of North Carolina. In 1964, you had Bob Grant going from Jacksonville, North Carolina, and Butch Henry from Greensboro to Wake Forest. Wake Forest was the first major conference Southern school to desegregate. And so then in 1964, you had this game at Chapel Hill with Michigan State and North Carolina. And what's significant about that game is nothing happened. That was like a Seinfeld episode. but that's very important because just a year earlier, and you know the Maryland history with Darrell Hill as the first black. He was abused and cheap-shotted and taunted by the fans when they went to Clemson in South Carolina. And that was in 1963. And then, now, Darrell was a senior transfer, so Maryland's story is not as important as Wake Forest. But back to my point about the North Carolina game, in addition to Clinton Jones making his varsity debut on his way to the College Football Hall of Fame, George Webster from Anderson, South Carolina, made his varsity debut. Jim Summers, a starting defensive back from South Carolina, he made his varsity debut. But they told their parents to stay home. A black person didn't go into this environment. They were afraid of what would happen to them is what happened to Darrell Hill. Darrell Hill's parent, his mother, came down to the game at Clemson, and they would not let her in the stadium. So George Webster and Jim Summers, imagine that. You're so proud of yourself. You're making your varsity debut, in a neighboring state, and you have to tell your parents to stay home. So that is what's significant, is they feared something would happen, but nothing did. The players did not, North Carolina, a segregated all-white team, they did not cheap shot the Spartans. They did not taunt them with the N-word. And when I spoke to Ken Willard about this, Ken Willard was the star on those North Carolina teams, played for a long time in the 49ers. And Ken Willard's feeling was, he said to me when I first talked to him, he said, Tom, I honestly don't remember anyone on our campus talking about it or our team. And he had kind of a defensive tone. And I said, no, Ken, the Michigan State players told me they had no problem. And then Ken told me he thought the reason for that was because North Carolina had played at Michigan State in '63, and they had played a couple of other games against integrated teams in the North. So it wasn't new to them. And the whole story on that, as Clint can tell you, is we all have to get to know each other. If we get to know each other, we resolve a lot of our conflicts and racial prejudices.
So I want to follow that up, but I want to, Clinton, if you could just respond to, kind of follow up on what Tom said. I have another question I want to ask you before, we're almost running out of time here. But I just want you to back up what Tom had to say there.
Well, this is absolutely true. This has been kind of like an urban legend, but the story needs to be told and widely spread. It needs to be known all throughout the nation. I just got back from Minnesota for South Carolina's Bobby Bryant being inducted to the Viking Ring of Honor. Mm-hmm. And I talked to a lot of guys that don't know about this History, and they should know. And it's important, especially the younger generation. They need to know this. This is stories as big as Rosa Parks and any other civil rights historical event that helped get rid of segregation and bring the country together. And just think how relevant it is right now in the times, right here today, how relevant this is.
All right, I got one more question for you, Clinton. I feel like we wasted Tom Shanahan's time here. Did you and some of your teammates, Clinton, recognize the significance of the moment in real time, or is it just now looking back on it?
Just now looking back on it. We weren't aware of setting history or anything, of a historical moment. We were not. We were concentrating on football and on winning.
It's just like regular college football today.
Yes.
They don't
Exactly.
know. They don't know. It's too bad you guys didn't have NIL back in the day. Clinton Jones, a college football Hall of Famer, and Tom Shanahan, a humanitarian Hall of Famer and a great author. And I appreciate, Tom, you bringing the 60th anniversary of this event to my attention. We'll talk again very soon. Clinton, thank you very much for your time. I know you're based out on the West Coast, and hopefully we'll get a chance to meet one day. But I appreciate your time. Tom, take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thanks very much, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
You got it. 60 years ago today. That's another, I think, maybe a feather in the University of North Carolina's cap. You know, that they're very much involved when, Dean Smith was very pro integration of their basketball program. So, cool deal.